I don't know who knows Malcolm and who does not know Malcolm. He's the executive chairman and co-founder of Coinsilium, an accelerator that finances and manages the development of early stage blockchain technology companies. And most important of all, he supports Crystal Palace. Absolutely. Malcolm, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming here tonight. I know I'm the warm-up act, and I'm very happy to be the warm-up act for the guys that we're at the warm-up act for. So, but nonetheless, we've got the opportunity to talk to you about Coinsilium. I'm proud to be one of the co-founders of Coinsilium. Hopefully I can use this remote and explain what we're about. So blockchain is a brand new sector. This is the stuff that you have to read in 3 seconds. Done. I'm glad you agreed that. Eddie and I, Eddie Travia, co-founder, myself as co-founder, we founded Coinsilium in 2014. The objective was to make it a company where people could actually get access to the blockchain technology sector that perhaps didn't know too much about it at the time. At the time, it was all about Bitcoin. It's evolved a lot since then. So Eddie's credentials there, mine are there. This presentation is available on our website, and I'll certainly be able to point you towards that, so you don't have to worry about the speed I'm going through these slides, because I'm conscious of the fact that I've got a limited time. We've got 2 non-executive directors. Tony Sarin is a veteran of the dot-com boom, and Craig Brown is a chartered accountant and also CEO of a mining company called ECR Minerals. Mining is going to be relevant when as an application for blockchain as well, so I'm going to come to that in a second. This is our performance, and this is our share structure. So we've got 122 million shares, or 0.7 shares outstanding. We've got 5.5 million in treasury, which we bought, shares we managed to buy back. When I rejoined the board in January, the share price was, although on the 6th of February, it was just under a penny. It's now at 6 pence, having been up to 27 pence. So we rode that wave of interest in the blockchain technology sector in 2017 towards the end of the year. It's in a bit of a funk now, but that's just the nature of the sector and the nature, and because everyone seems to think that we are joined to the hip with cryptocurrencies, which we're not, but nonetheless, it's too early to try and persuade the market differently. So what do? 2017 was a transformational year for us. We are an investor and an accelerator. We're a venture builder, and we're also an advisor in this sector. So I don't know how many of you know much about blockchain technology, but it's a little bit like where we are now is where the internet was in 1994, where you all of a sudden started with email, and everyone could send emails. And if you wanted to browse the web, you had to wait a few years till the browser came about. So that was when people realized what the internet was all about. Where we are now is at the stage where everyone gets cryptocurrencies and sees Bitcoin and sees all these token sales, but they don't really understand what else it can do, because all the functionality is not ready yet. It's all being built. So we're getting involved as an investor in early stage blockchain technology companies that are providing the picks and shovels for the industry. We're also getting involved as advisors in token sales. Now, token sales, without going to too much, drilling down too far into it, is a way for a company, a startup, to raise money without giving away equity. It sells its services in advance. It does that because this technology enables you to actually digitize a instrument which is referred to as a token. And that token allows you to buy services up front. So if you opened a sandwich shop and you wanted 10,000 for that, £10,000, all you do is you go around to your mates and say, if you buy a voucher off of me that gives you half price sandwiches for £100 and you get £200 worth of sandwiches, that's exactly what token sales are. They're advanced purchases of services. And because of the digital, the speed of digital transactions, companies that are providing platforms that work with these services can raise up to, and has been done, $150 million in 15 seconds. So it's transformational if you think of the applications that can be done. So back to my company, we've demonstrated our effectiveness as an investor by exiting our first investment after 18 months with a 362.6% increase on the price paid. We made 3 investments last year in token-based propositions, blocks and Endorse and Startup Token. I'll come to those later. We're well funded for our purposes. We're not going to punch too far above our weight in the sense of what we're going to invest in. We raised just under 1.3 million pounds last year in 4 private placements on NEX, which were fantastically well subscribed. First one was a penny when I rejoined the board. That's another story. But I refinanced and rejoined the board in January 2017. Next one was at 2 pence, then at 2.2 pence, and then at 9 pence. We advise. I mentioned our advisory work. We've generated at the time when we announced $5.3 million worth of fees in digital assets for advising digital token propositions. We also started a subsidiary in Gibraltar, which is where regulation is going to be at the forefront of their proposition. Gibraltar is positioning itself as a pioneer in regulation for blockchain technology. We're approaching the mining and exploration space, offering a way for mining and exploration companies to raise funds through forward selling their production using digital assets. Richard Lloyd is our advisor. He's joined us here tonight. And if you want to know more about that, please speak to him later. And we're also setting up a private fund in Gibraltar, which will be a repository for our digital assets. A lot to take in, I appreciate that, so I'm just going to whiz through the rest of it. That's our timeline from when we listed in 2015 and all the things we've achieved in the meantime. This is the business model. We started off as an investor. We then became an investor and venture builder when we launched TerraStream. And we're now effectively an operator since we are advising clients to do token sales. And that's a revenue generative activity. That's a snapshot of our portfolio of investments that if you know the sector, which you probably perhaps need to get up to speed with, some of these are very well known in the space, but I can certainly run through those later. We have modest holdings in some very significant companies. RSK and Factum have grown phenomenally. They are considered in the industry quite, they're market leaders in the industry, that's what I should say. And Endorse is one we've recently invested or increased our investment in up to 10%. They are going head to head with LinkedIn, if you've heard of them. They've raised in a token sale at the time $27 million just by selling forward access to their platform. And we've invested them. We now have 10% for, I'll have to check the figures because I haven't got them immediately to hand, but nonetheless it was a few $100,000. That's our investment strategy. This is the case study of Satoshi Pay, which is the investment we exited. New opportunities are what we're looking for, and this is the way we approach. We're looking at follow-on investments because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We know the companies that work, and we know where we want to do follow-on investments. Our venture building activities in collaboration with key tech partners are important to us because we want to be seen as more than an investor, because an investor is just valued at a discount to effectively its assets. So it's important that we're seen as active and as actually doing things that are proactive in the space. And we're also invested in an accelerator called Startup Token, which will allow us to manage a lot of the startups through a company that is geared and fit and designed to actually provide that service. So it doesn't stretch our resources too far. Our advisory services, which I explained before, Coinsilium has advised clients, and those clients have gone on to raise over $500 million in token sales. This is a whole new space, and as the example I gave to you before is about how it works, it's counterintuitive for people who are used to traditional finance, but just accept that as it is. Nonetheless, we've now worked with 14 companies, and we've advised them on their token generation events, which means that we've helped them and guided them through the whole process. They go out and sell their tokens to the market. That's the amount they've generated in total. 9 of those 14 have already completed their token generation events. Coinsilium earns fees for this service. We get a retainer because anyone wants to use our services, they have to pay us every month in the run-up to their token sale. And that is a set amount of money depending on what services need to be provided. But the key to our success is going to be through success fees. So token sales usually are counted in the millions. If a company raises 10 million or 20 million or 30 million, it is in traditional sense more than a lot of companies would need to actually develop their business. But those are the figures that are being raised in token sales in this environment. And Coinsilium earns a success fee without putting too much focus on the numbers, but it can be 1, 2, 2.5, maybe 3%, depending on how much work we have to do. So you can imagine if we are taking on a new client as an advisory client, there can be a significant amount of fees generated for doing this kind of work. And it is a really focused, specialist kind of work. We advise companies on how to do if they need our help on this, how to do their token model, what the token economics are going to be, their white paper drafting. We help them with recommending jurisdictions of where they're going to be operating out of, and also introducing them to the legal and tax professionals. It's a very specialist area. We happen to have the right skills to be able to perform that function, and we're very, very fortunate in that regard. And we're also in a good position to actually develop this business, as I said, with 14 companies so far since we launched this division in the summer of last year. These are examples of some of the companies that we work with, that we provide advisory services to. They may or may not mean much to you. GBX is a division of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, which has now launched a Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange. Endorse is the professional social media platform I was telling you about. They are going head-to-head with LinkedIn, but they also have got this advantage of when you decentralize a proposition without, that means it's not like Facebook or LinkedIn where you've got central data. That data has been sold to the likes of Cambridge Analytica. This can't happen because the person who puts his data in owns his data. He also gets rewarded for his performance on the platform, and those rewards can be converted into tokens which advertisers buy, and those advertisers pay in tokens for advertising on the platform. So it's very ambitious, it's very innovative, and you know what, it might work. TerraStream is, as I was explaining before, is our own in-house venture where we're looking at the mining and exploration sector and looking at a funding, a space that is not always easy to fund for exploration companies. As they move up that curve from early stage exploration, they start doing their work on resource definition. But if it's a gold mining company and they have defined a resource of several 100,000 ounces of gold in the ground at various stages of confidence, it could move up to the point where they're at pre-feasibility. These are all sort of relative mining finance terms, but that's an area where they struggle to get finance. And this solution will allow them to forward sell some of their production. And Richard is the guy who's going to ensure that we don't take on the companies where the gold's not going to come out of the ground, and he's taking full responsibility for that process. So we will ensure that we get the right kind of propositions, and effectively you'll buy a token which is going to be digitally traded, which will represent an ounce of gold perhaps, but the discount will reflect the risk or the time that it will take to get in production. So the company gets finance at a price that is competitive to equity finance and perhaps even better because they don't dilute, and then they will then be able to sell that on a platform which we will be building to investors who want to take a little bit of a risk and maybe buy gold at a significant discount to spot price, prepared to wait a couple of years for delivery, or maybe trade it in between as this liquidity will enable. So that's TerraStream, registered in Gibraltar, which is where the regulations are coming into force. Startup Token is our accelerator. We bought 30% of this company. They came out of the traps running, literally, in July last year. They are putting together, they take startup companies that are doing token sales on tour to meet investors. They're doing phenomenally well. There's a tour going on right now. Eddie Travior, our CEO, couldn't be here because he had to be there, and he's working with them on that. So in a nutshell, these are the key points. We were the first company to list on a stock exchange in the blockchain sector in the world. That's a first. We completed a transition from pure investment company to an operator. We have a competitive advantage due to our focus on Gibraltar, which we believe is going to provide a very significant regulatory framework. There's a lot of demand for token generative events, and we are in a good position to provide advice for that. We've got a pretty good track record, and we like to think the management team, perhaps aside from me, are highly skilled. Thank you very much for your time.